Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Sulk stream. I'm your host, the Incredible Sulk. I hope you guys are having a good Friday, a great Friday, the best Friday you've had in all week, which shouldn't be hard. It's also the worst one. How you guys doing? I hope you guys are good. Tonight we're going to be doing paranormal. We're going to be doing a paranormal video. I like to throw these in, pepper these in every once in a while because they're nice, they're cozy, they're oddly comforting. To me, maybe I'm just broken. Maybe I'm just disturbed. I mean, that goes without saying. I think you guys get the gist, but there we go. Yeah. This one's about the ghost of a mongoose that haunts a family. And not just specifically haunts them, but also helps them out by killing rabbits and doing a bunch of other weird things. This is our 3-hour show, by the way. We're gonna do the 3-hour, the long version. The first 2 hours will be the normal show, and then I will pop on over to Rumble Premium, and I will do another hour and 15 minutes or so. So, if you are on Rumble Premium, you will experience no interruption, and if you're not, get it. I mean, if you want, get it. So you can watch. I'm going to be doing these every Friday night. So these long streams every Friday night. If you want to participate with us, I would love to have you. And yeah, I would really enjoy that. Anyways, guys, we're just going to go ahead and hop right on in. Right? It's Friday. I think we should be chill and relaxed. I yell a lot, and I air my grievances with a lot of things. But how can you be mad at a mongoose ghost? A monghost? I can't be mad at that. Even if you tied my shoelaces together and broke my appliances and impregnated my daughter and stuff like that, I wouldn't be that angry. It's a ghost of a mongoose. It would be weird. It would be a very strange haunting. Some sort of weird poltergeist that brings you snakes? That's what they snakes? You bring me snakes? And another thing about this mongoose. Apparently it speaks English, but not just English. Lots of languages. So that's just throwing a spin on there. I don't want to spoil too much. But I just want you guys to be prepared and buckle up for the weird shit that's about to happen. Yeah. Anyways, get comfy. Oh, always with the sounds. Get comfy. Get cozy. Get a nice candlelit abra or one of those things. Abra, whatever. Get in the mood is what I'm saying. All right. Turn the lights down. Make sure everybody's out of the house. Take the phone off the hook, as if it were the 90s. Turn the power off to your house. Set a fire where a fire shouldn't be. All of these things could be very useful or distracting. Just chill out. Don't make it so serious. How about that? Anyways, grab a bottle of something nice, somebody you like. And, yeah, I'm the Incredible Sulk. This is the Sulk stream, and this is called, Geff the Talking Mongoose. Enjoy.
I'm going to ask you to suspend your disbelief.
No.
Because what's happened here is unbelievable. It's a story filled with ludicrous ideas. A story that doesn't make sense at times. But nonetheless, a story that was apparently very real to one family. Their neighbors.
I'm sorry, I mispronounced it. It's Jeff. His name is Jeff, it's not Geff.
And those who dared to come and see what was happening for themselves. But it's a story you need to hand yourself over to and let it take you where it needs to go.
3 hours tonight.
In the world of the strange, this one is rather unique.
3 hours, and this is a long documentary, so we're going to do it. We're going to do the whole damn thing.
In 1932, famed psychic researcher Harry Price was not in the best of circumstances.
This is
Price
water.
had gained a certain level of notoriety over the years for exposing fraudulent claims of psychic abilities and the paranormal. Most notably at this point, debunking William Hope's famous spirit photographs. He found himself stuck between two worlds, a science-based one and a spiritualist one. The various psychical research institutes that had sprung up over the years were not thrilled with Price's connection to spiritualist groups, while the spiritualists saw him as a skeptic, intent on destroying their work. He was also a key part in the formation of what would become the British Film Institute, a detail that will become important later.
So my wife said I shouldn't talk too much during this stream, and because she really liked the story. And I'm like, what exactly do you think I do here? What do you think I do on these shows? Is it, you think I just sit here quietly? Because that's not what I do here. But I'm going to try my best to try to get through this. It's an hour and 20 minutes. And a lot of times we only do 10 minutes. I mean, you guys have seen the show. 10 minutes and I riff on something. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I can actually riff on a lot of these topics because I don't know a lot about ghosts. I don't think anybody does. I think they just make things up and then they're like, yeah, I know ghosts. I'm a medium. I'm a medium from New Jersey and I got the big hair. And then I talk to ghosts and I annoy them with my accent and stuff like that. They chose me. I don't know why. Is that my New Jersey accent? I really should give up trying accents. Or go to a fucking class or something like that. I mean, or practice. I could practice, but then that just sounds psychotic. Me doing accents in the middle of the house at 3 o'clock in the morning at the top of my lungs. The wife will love it.
Sometime early that year that Price was sitting alone in his study, flicking through letters and articles, looking for a new case. Something to really sink his teeth into.
Khalid says, uh-oh, my Wi-Fi stopped working when I turned off all the electricity in my house. Did you feel better? Were the 5G waves affecting your brain and like your mood and stuff like that? That's a legitimate question because people think that, and I don't know if that's true. I want to make a hat with like copper netting that stops the brain waves. Or stops the Wi-Fi from getting into my head and my brainwaves from getting out. Those are my brainwaves. That's private property. I don't want anybody to scan my brainwaves. Can they do that? I have no idea. I'm going to go ahead and say probably. It's not something I worry about on a daily basis, but maybe it should be. Are you guys totally sure where your brainwaves are going?
He came across something that caught his attention. A letter from a woman named Florence Milburn. The letter was referring to an incident that had not happened to her, but to someone who was living on a nearby farm.
Yes, Khadid.
Apparently the local...
Like a hat made of tinfoil.
...area had been abuzz with rumours and wild claims that were...
It's almost as if that didn't come out of nowhere.
...taking place. The letter read, Dear Sir, I beg you to forgive me for presuming on your valuable time and attention, but I feel sure you will be interested, from a scientific point of view, in what I tell you. In the heart of the country, between Glen Main and Dalby, is a small farmhouse occupied by a Mr. and Mrs. Irving and one daughter. Last September, they noticed a strange animal in their farmyard amongst the fowls, similar to a weasel. Sometime after that, they began to hear a very loud thumping on the wooden partitions. On hearing the knocking, Mr. Irving spoke, calling it to stop, and was surprised on hearing it speak back.
It's not a weasel. That's not a weasel. It's not a weasel. Also, I love how people used to write back in ye olden times. This isn't that olden. This is like the early 19th century. But when you read Twitter all day and you get the time to evaluate the bottom rung of human intelligence. It's amazing. It's amazing the stupidity that you read on that website. It worries me because I'm like, is me absorbing this like lowering IQ points? I'm pretty sure that's the case. And I don't have many to spare. So, like, should I really be on that site? Listen, like, reading threads about, like, we was kings and stuff like that, and how women aren't responsible for getting pregnant even though they spread their legs and shit like that. It's asinine opinion after asinine opinion. At least there's good writing in these, right? In these old-timey letters, like a Civil War, my dearest Jessica, don't fuck nobody. It doesn't say that. You know, it didn't say that. I kind of wish, you know, I kind of wish it was like that back, like that now. At least more coherent. I'm sorry, I can't even do that right. I wish it was more coherent, unlike myself. Moving on. Oh,
Price was instantly intrigued and decided to get in touch with the family. And so began...
Hold on, we'll go ahead and pause it right there, and that's the bell. Bing, 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 bing. David P. gifted 5 subscriptions to The Incredible Sulk. Thank you, David P. And everyone got one. I think it just pans them out randomly. It must.
The strangest paranormal tales of all time. What started as a genuinely creepy tale took Price and many others into a rabbit hole they could have never expected. Get yourself a warm drink, dim the lights, and get comfortable.
Get yourself a nice, like, eggnog or something. Are you noggers? Do you guys like the nog? I personally am against the nog, right? I don't like nogs. Anywhere, if somebody says, would you like a nog? I'm like, no, get that out of my face. And then I slap it, and then it lands on grandma. And it's gross, dude. It's like drinking mayonnaise. I don't get why people drink eggnog. I know this is not the time for that. This is not the season to talk about eggnog. But I feel like it's a topic of discussion that has not been settled properly. Eggnog is a disgusting beverage, and there's a reason why people only choke it down once a year, okay? If it was good, people would drink it year-round. I would drink it year-round. If it was good, it's not good. It's not good. It's like, it's very creamy, but an egg-based beverage is the work of the devil, okay? An egg-based beverage is a work of the devil. I'm not a huge fan of mayonnaise, right? I don't like mayonnaise at all. I love eggs. I have maybe 6 a day. That's not even a joke. I have a lot of eggs. But when you like cream it or you make it into a beverage or something like that, that's too far. That's too far for me. That's just way too far for me. I'm not saying mayonnaise is the work of the devil. Eggnog is. Eggnog is a sin. That's a hard stance to take, right? And I'm going to lose some followers out of this. I know I am, because people love their eggnog. And I'm like, if you love it so much, why do you only drink it one day a year? One fucking day a year. And you have to put a bunch of liquor in it, and you have to choke down the first 3 before you start enjoying them. That's not, you're just enjoying the bourbon or whatever you put in eggnog. The whiskey. I have no idea.
It's time to talk about one of my favorite ghost stories, if you can call it that.
Khalid says, John's a fucking millionaire, 6 eggs a day. What is that? I don't even know. It's like, yeah. Oh, here we go. David P. again. All right, let me get the bow. And he's a monthly supporter. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Of all time. This is the strange case of the Derby Spook. Or, as it's some...
You can't say that. No, you can't say the Derby Spook. You have to say like the Derby Coon or something like that.
Times known. The story of Jeff.
Is that what we're talking about?
Mongoose. I think it's worth going back a little in time. Because according to some of the locals, the moment the Irvings arrived wasn't exactly the start of the strange activity in the area. Our story takes place at Dawlish Gashen, a remote farm.
I don't even know. Is JD here yet? JD, get off your fucking ass, dude. Get your bowling hat on and your vest and your pocket watch and show up to the chat, for God's sakes.
I'm on the Isle of Man, which for those not familiar is an island situated...
Ardenshire says eggnog only exists on Christmas because you need the spirit of Christmas to make it. That and lots of nutmeg. What is the spirit of Christmas specifically? What is that? Is that just alcoholism? Is that like I don't know, a 0.20 on the BAC? You know, your blood alcohol content? Is that high? I think that's high.
On the Irish Sea, between Ireland and England. The farm, particularly today, isn't easy to get to. Situated away from the nearest village up a steep hill, and is said to be around 70 acres in size.
That's a good-sized farm.
The area appears to have its fair share of local ghost stories.
I would like a 70-acre farm. I would love 70 acres. I would absolutely love to have 70 acres. I could shoot. I could drive around recklessly. I could drive drunk on my own property. Right? Now I have to do it on public roads, which is like, I don't know. I mean, it's fun, but it's not like, you know, you can get busted doing it. But I would have my own drunk driving track, and it would change shapes depending on how intoxicated I was.
And folklore.
And what kind of tractor I was driving. Yes, tractor. It would be a bulldozer. I imagine there'd be a lot of trees, and so I don't want to like swerve to avoid a bunch of trees. No, I'm just going to right over them.
From early in the 1900s.
How do you drive drunk? I'm sorry. What, am I doing it wrong? Am I supposed to be all like, oh, I have to definitely drive around all of these trees so I don't disturb squirrels? No. I just fucking floor it. Like this. Like that. Turn the lights off.
Tales of men digging in the area and discovering a flat stone. When they pulled it up, beneath was an urn containing ashes.
Oh.
The two men who discovered it decided to bury it in the ground below a hedge bank.
It was already buried. It was already buried. You dug it up, and then you reburied it somewhere else.
Original position. Sometime after this, a young man was hunting rabbits with his dog, when he saw a small furry animal dart under the hedge. The man reached in, pulling at the dirt under the hedge, where he was convinced the animal had burrowed itself and was now cornered.
Are you crazy? Why would you do that? Why would you, if the animal's cornered, why would you start like digging in and like reaching your hand in? That's how you lose a finger.
He had no idea he was pulling up the ground that now housed the urn. Suddenly, he fell backwards, falling to the ground. The man froze for a moment and righted himself back up to continue digging, certain that he had just lost his balance, when all of a sudden he was pushed back again. More violently this time. It was enough to spook him to such an extent that he ran back to the village. Another local around this time reports walking alone one night towards Dalby. This man claims he was followed for 3 miles by something strange.
Now, a lot of people wouldn't do this, but have you ever walked through the woods at night, like alone, just at night in the woods, far from any humans or anything like that? It's really nice. It's very peaceful. You don't need a flashlight. I mean, provided there's a decent enough moon, you don't need a flashlight. It's just nice and peaceful to walk through the forest at night. A lot of people get scared about like what's going to happen out there. Why don't you have a gun? Why? I don't understand. If you're afraid of like walking around, carry a gun like a normal person, like a normal not retarded person. Carry a fucking gun. It takes care of any sort of fear you might have, right? If the bushes rustle a little bit too much, bam, 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 bam. Just empty the clip into the bushes. You don't even have to check on it afterwards. If it stops running, you just keep on walking, right? It could have been a homeless guy. No skin off my back. That's all I'm saying. You know? If it was a guy that's about to jump out and stab me, then I have succeeded. If it was just like some homeless guy sleeping in the bushes, then, well, that was his fault. That was his fault for being homeless.
A voice, but with no one else around. The voice sung hymns to him and berated him, telling him he needed to live a better life When the man reached a hill that...
You pile of shit. Wait, I'm sorry. There was a voice in the wood. He was walking down and he heard a voice of, I assume it's this mongoose, and he was just telling him, like, dude, you need to pull your shit together. You need to really, like, look at that gut, dude. Come on. What are you, 35? You should not be so gutty. And then this mongoose is just really cutting him down. Too bad you're not allowed to have guns in England. Honestly, too bad.
Led up to Dawlish Kashen. He claimed that he felt like he was being pushed towards it, but the man resisted and rushed back home. Others spoke of strange animals that haunted the land, but not in specific details. It was a strange choice for James Irving to buy Dawlish Kashen. The man had been living in Liverpool with his wife Margaret and their 2 children, Elsie and Gilbert.
Not the best looking crew. Not the best looking crew.
James would be described as a cosmopolitan man. He was often well dressed, lived in a nice house, and had an interest in multiple languages. He worked for a piano company that was based in Canada, and at times would travel as part of his role as a sales agent. However, this all fell apart during the First World War, and James was forced to try his hand at a few different trades, before strangely coming across Dawlish Kashen in November of 1916. He invested some of what he had left of his savings, £310, on this remote farm despite having no experience of farming.
I'm sorry, how much did he buy this farm for? £310. Was it, even if it was actual silver, that's a steal. I don't know. How much is a pound of silver worth? I mean, I'm sure it's not cheap, but what is silver? $20 an ounce? So 16, 10 is 200. Then, okay. So, I mean, it's a lot of silver, but that's still not very much money. I would buy 70 acres for 310 pounds in today money.
The house was old. Irving believed it was around 130 years old at the point he purchased it. But some experts claim that the construction points to it being much older than that, potentially medieval. Previously, the estate had belonged to a...
Sick. That's one thing I'm absolutely jealous of. Like, people in Europe can buy a house and like, oh, this house was built in like 1250, way back. And if you dig under the house a little bit, you find like a medieval sword or something like that. And they're like, yeah, cool. They shine it up and hang it on the... People find old wells under their house and then they like display it. That kicks ass. That's really cool. And if you're going to get a haunted house, it's going to be one of these. Because if your house has been around for like 800 years, somebody's died in it. Probably dozens of people have died in it. And that house has seen some shit. Also, modern houses are built like crap. Like anything built after 2010 is just garbage. It's just like ramshackled together. The wood is like brittle. It's just poor craftsmanship all around. It's all for profit. It's some developer trying to make a profit on like a housing development or something like that. I would never, ever live in a tract home development. I hate neighbors. I hate them. I have them, but they're not that close. But I wish I had more property. I do wish one day I'll have more property.
French refugee named Pierre Baum, a rather eccentric character according to the locals, and one who some suggested still haunted the land. Initially, it appears Irving had
background noise says, I'm hoping to find something in my yard. They say the first owner used to bury his valuables. Get a metal detector. They're cheap. I mean, they're not, but get a metal detector and get like a very powerful magnet. And then just like put it on a rope and then throw it around your yard and then drag it in and see what you get, right? Like magnet fishing, which is cool. In America, when you go magnet fishing, you'll find all kinds of guns, right? All kinds of guns. Most of them are murder weapons, yeah. But if you're cool with that, I'm cool with that, right? You know, if the serial number is like scraped off of it, then how would I possibly know? You know, it's mine now. I don't care whose blood's on it, right? I find it in the bottom of a lake, it's mine. You know, yeah. God, I want to do that.
No intention of living there. He knew it would require a decent amount of work to get it up and running, but he intended to turn it into a working farm once again. However, when his other attempts at a new career failed, James moved to the island with his wife and daughter Elsie, staying at a nearby cottage while the renovation work was complete. However, the first of the workers James hired didn't stay for long. In May of 1917, James had hired 2 men from the nearby town of Peel to work on the house. Rather than them having to walk the long and difficult trek to the farm, he had arranged for them to stay there while working. On the second night, both men came to James's cottage to tell him they were leaving. When he asked why, they said they had another job to do in town that night. But years later, the 2 men would confess to Irvin the real reason. One of the men had been hearing strange sounds the entire time they had been there, as well as a feeling he described as uncanny. He didn't get into specifics, but whatever he was experiencing was enough for them to walk the 4 miles back into town in the middle of the night.
4 miles ain't bad. 4 miles, you can do that in an hour. That's not that bad.
Rather than stay in the house a second longer. James's son Gilbert took over the initial running of the farm, and the family moved in on September of 1917. But after several years of working...
Morningside says vintage Jankum. You huffing Jankum, Mort? Who's huffing Jankum? Oh, not Khadid says, imagine he just buried jars of poop. I mean, you could huff that, and then it'll get poop, right? Like that. You know how you Mad Max Fury Road but it's poop. Go ahead, huff it. Huff that shit, right? Hold it in like a bong rip, and right, there's poop particles from a stranger. Lovely. Lovely.
Both Gilbert and Elsie moved back to the mainland. Luckily, Margaret and James were not left totally alone, as in March of 1918, Margaret had given birth to another daughter named Vori. The farmhouse was isolated, dark throughout all times of the day.
Sick. Exactly what I want. Exactly. I don't care if it takes me an hour to get groceries. I want that, right? There's a big hill. There's like some easily defendable. Easily defensible. I can lay booby traps all around it. There'd be a network of tunnels dug all over this that kind of go into this mountain. There'd be a bunker in the mountain, obviously. And the thing I would treasure most is the silence. Just the utter, just the quiet. You know? I don't get enough of that. And maybe it's my autism or something like that makes me extremely sensitive to like lights and sounds and like emotions and stuff. But I would live there quietly and alone and just contemplate, smoke my pipe, think about the world.
And the family at times wouldn't receive a visitor for months on end. It was a lonely existence seemingly. But James at least didn't seem to mind too much, and would happily make conversation with anyone he met in the local area, attempting to integrate himself as best as he could.
I wouldn't do that. I would. People would see me, right? But then I'd look away. I would look away, right? They'd make eye contact with me, like, and be like, and I'd be, no. Whenever Jess has guests over, I go into the bedroom, and they're like, "Hi, John," and I like look at them through the door. And I just shut it. I just shut it. It's very awkward for her. And then I blast music.
but still looking for a higher quality of conversation than he thought the local farmers could provide by joining the local Freemasons. His daughter and wife, however, were more reserved. The family was sometimes viewed as a little strange by the locals, calling them eccentric, some even cruelly describing Margaret as witch-like, although this characteristic would be echoed by some investigators in the future. A big part of this, though, is that they were outsiders, in a rural area full of people who had lived on the island their whole lives. These were well-spoken city folk from the mainland. Some thought that James in particular acted like he was above some of the locals.
They were probably like, that guy's a poofter. That guy is a gay. And being gay back in these days was not okay. And I want it to be like that again. It's not okay.
Writers on this topic have noticed the echoes of how
it's not okay to be gay.
Often they were simply people who lived further away from the community, who maybe behaved a little strangely compared to what the locals
Not Khadid says, or just puts a gif of Elmo burning in hell. He was gay. Elmo was gay, dude. He was like so gay. He was like fondled as a kid. I know it's not like the most pleasant, but like Oscar the Grouch, you know, somebody left Elmo alone with Oscar the Grouch. He's a homeless guy that lives in a trash can. What do you expect? Right? He's not getting a lot of ass in that trash can.
Used to. And of course,
so he molested Elmo.
Many of those witches were said to have familiars.
Yeah. And then Bert and Ernie adopted him. And you knew that whole situation.
Small animals that could do their bidding. And it wouldn't be long until the Irvings would have their own. It seems the activity started in September of 1931, around the time that Vori had turned 13. And is so often the case, it started with a simple noise, a tapping, late at night. James and Margaret were sat there when they heard it coming from above, a sort of repeat.
Not Khadid says Oscar the Goon. Yeah. What do you think he's doing in that trash can? Imagine like when it gets hot and stuff like that, and he's just sitting in that trash can, and it's like 100 degrees outside. He's just and he's all furry and like gross, and it stinks, right? So obviously he's gonna pound one out.
Tap between the wooden ceiling and their roof. James.
I want to see a graphic of Oscar the Grouch just with a needle hanging out of his arm, dead, like dead in a gutter. Because he's a homeless guy, dude. He's a homeless guy. And, you know, Sesame Street would be a lot cleaner without him. You know?
James, convinced it was mice, went up to investigate.
Odious says, is this about ghosts? No, it's about Oscar the Grouch being a pedophile.
He looked around, but he couldn't find anything. But he did notice something strange.
Mongoose, yeah.
There was a little Indian woodcutting that he owned, laying on the floor in the middle of the attic. It was odd. James had no memory of putting it up there. Curious, he picked up the object and dropped it to the floor again. It created the same sound that he and Margaret had been hearing from below. A couple of nights later, they heard it again.
On that wallpaper.
But this time it was followed by the sound of something running. Convinced again it must be some sort of animal, James said out loud, "That is no mouse." This was much larger. This claim seemed to cause whatever was running around above them to respond. It barked like a dog, then hissed like a cat. It then growled, before repeating the various sounds over and over. Then there was a sudden loud cracking noise, and simultaneously a picture frame on the other side of the room shook from side to side. Then, silence. Understandably, the Irvings were baffled, but once again...
It just made a bunch of... It didn't... So, I'm sorry, it barked like a dog, and then it meowed like a cat? Is that what he was saying? This thing doesn't sound like it knows what it is.
When they went to inspect, there was nothing there. At some point in October, James and Vori apparently caught sight of something running around.
Not Khadid says it's a mongoose, a sassy one who fat shames. Yeah, because a guy was walking through the forest earlier, and it was all like, oh my God. It told the guy that his life was not acceptable. His shit was not acceptable. Like, he's got to pull it together. And how bad do you have to? It's like 1910. I don't know what year it is, but it's like 1910. Everyone's life is kind of the same unless you're like a robber baron. But even then, your life is like, it's moderately better, but it's still not great. You get a train car that's all fancy and stuff like that with a pool table in it. You get to drink alcohol, but everyone gets to drink alcohol all day long, every single day. That's the deal. Drunk driving was not a thing, right? People drove and people drank, but doing them together wasn't considered unusual, right? It was just like, you had breakfast and you had a couple shots of vodka or whiskey, and then you'd have like a pint of beer, and then, that would be breakfast. You would be loaded all the time. Like, that's... In our modern era, people do not drink nearly as much as they used to. They didn't have like TVs, or there was nothing good going on. So they just got drunk and they banged each other. And the population exploded. So maybe to fight this whole baby bust that we're dealing with, we need to start pumping up those alcohol numbers. I think people need to drink a lot more. A lot more. But, DUIs are going to happen unless you get your own property so you can drive drunk on your own property. But you're not going to find anything to have sex with. Hopefully. All right. You might find a cadaver in the forest or something like that, but there's a good chance that you put that there. And no, don't touch my cadavers.
It looked about 9 inches long with yellowish fur. James was convinced it looked like a stoat or a weasel. Over the following days, the sounds continued, before they seemed to warp from the sounds of animals to almost the babbling of a baby, then back to the sounds of an animal. Curious, James decided to try and interact with the sound. Bear in mind, the family had been living a secluded, lonely life on the farm for quite some time at this point. There wasn't a whole lot of entertainment to be had. When the creature barked, James said out loud, "Dog." And the sound on the other side of the wall repeated the word back to him. When it hissed, he said, "Cat."
What's going on here? It barks, and then this guy says dog, and then it hisses, and then he says cat. And, well, no, but the thing behind the wall says dog as well. So it's obviously not a dog. If it's saying the word dog, my dog doesn't walk. It's not a Pokemon. It doesn't walk around saying the word dog. Let's see if it says the word cat.
Again, the voice repeated what James had said.
Yeah, so it said the word cat right back at him. I would be like, this is not a dog or a cat. This is a person. There's a person in my house, and he's stupid. He's like a retard. Maybe he's a mental patient that escaped, and maybe I could just keep him as a pet now. He's positive he's some sort of animal. He just doesn't really know what kind of animal he wants to be. But he's living in the walls, calling people fat, and hissing and barking and stuff like that. It's a weirdo.
This continued for weeks, but very quickly the voice became very articulate.
Okay.
It acted as though it were learning to talk from James, but Irving admits there is no way this could be possible in such a short space of time. It was almost like the voice was toying with him, pretending it was learning from him, and James was happy to play along. James later noted in his diaries that he believes it pretended to learn as a way of easing the family in. If it had just started talking, James admits that most people would just instantly leave the house. But this gradual phasing of
Whoa, oh. Okay, yeah, no, I mean that's a perfectly reasonable assumption to make. However, if I was like teaching something that lived in my walls to talk, I wouldn't be like, oh, well, it doesn't know English right off the bat, so it's probably not a big deal. Let's just hang out and just see where this develops. No, I wouldn't do that. If the minute it said the word dog, I would be like, all right, that's not a fucking dog. Let's go. That's not a dog. That's not a dog. All right. My dog doesn't call me fat, even though I call him stupid like regularly, because he is. He's a gigantic idiot. And hey, Dudley. Let's see if he comes in here. Dudley, come on. Come on, Dudley. I can hear him. Click. See, that's what a dog does. He's not like, oh, dog. Oh, hey, fat owner. Come on, Dudley. Come on, Dudley. Come on, Dudley. See? Dudley. Oh, come on. Hold on. Come on, Dudley. Dudley. Dog. See? Dudley. Oh, yeah, you speak to the people, Dudley. See? He doesn't call me fat once. Not even once. Good boy, Dudley.
Sounds to voice made them feel strangely more comfortable around it.
You stink,
The voice
Dudley.
was unusual, high-pitched. Most witnesses described it as higher than a human voice. The voice began to talk to the family more and more, and claimed that they should call it Jack. Curiously, the Irving family still seemed convinced that
Artichar says, I'd teach it to say the N-word. Make sure it's not a Fed. Or, like, teach it to deny the Holocaust. Right? Just, it gets really uncomfortable. Right? Like, whoa, dude. Dog.
this was some sort of animal, and the voice apparently confirmed their suspicion.
I'll give Dudley a pat from the cult. He'll be happy. Yeah.
Fact, a weasel. But quickly, the family's amusement at this strange occurrence turned to fear. The creature, whatever it was, could be heard running around behind the wooden paneling that ran throughout the house, its voice often being heard from the small hole.
I'm sorry, Aeneas. Did you really have to comment that? I'm going to read it, but I'm not happy about it. He says, if this is about a Japanese mongoose, it probably dried up some porn actress's asshole like so many eels. That was so unnecessary. That was really unnecessary. And I didn't need to say it. But I did.
Holes that could be found around the property. It would bang loudly on the walls and laugh. A maniacal laugh that the family would often describe as satanic, keeping them awake.
Probably. Which word is died? Dried? That's probably
late into the night. But the reason for their belief that it was a physical creature.
Arden Shire says, weird, this spirit keeps saying Israel's my greatest ally. And it keeps wanting money. Like, tons of money. It's like, okay. All right.
Was that it appeared to be very physical. They could hear it running. At times it would spit through the holes at the family. They would find small puddles of urine on the floor. In his diary, James wrote that he believed this thing was trying
What's weird about finding little dried up puddles of urine around? That's not weird. Hey, obedient. That's not weird though, is it? That's not weird.
Drive them away. It did not seem to like the family, and he mentions various objectionable acts that he does not want to put into writing. Some of these may have been discussed later though, when James told investigators of the creatures at times sexualized taunting of Margaret. In one
sexualized taunting of Margaret. What does that mean? Sexualized, like, hey, big tits. Or was it like mean? Like, hey, small tits. I don't know. What is sexualized taunting? I need an example.
Such case as she was getting ready for bed, the voice would describe each item of clothing she was removing until
That would be creepy, dude. And I wouldn't. So, okay, Margaret probably knows what's up, and she's just kind of humoring her husband. But she knows there's a guy in the wall watching her undress, and the guy's just like, brah. panties, negligee. and she's just getting creeped out, right? And her husband's like, I'm teaching him English. And like, she's like, he's a pervert hiding in our walls, dude. Somebody's sawing out a key, right? Like, looking through it. Jesus, dude. How stupid is this family?
Margaret quickly became terrified and covered herself up. The couple lay in bed one night and James whispered to his wife, "What in the name of God can this thing be?" Loudly.
It's a guy. It's a dude. It's a peeping Tom, probably retarded, definitely drunk, and just has nowhere to live. He's living in your walls and just watching your wife get undressed and watching you bang. Guaranteed. He's guaranteed. And that's why he's calling you fat and stuff, right? He's all like, you need to get your shit together. This shit's lame, right? Ew. That's all you hear. It's just, ew. That's a plowing.
The voice repeated James's words in a mocking tone.
So funny.
If James sat up in bed at any point, the voice would yell at him to lay back down, calling him a devil as it did.
Lay down, I'm almost finished.
If he went to the toilet in the middle of the night, the voice would loudly describe what James was doing so that it could be heard throughout the house.
Jerking it! That's just like, whoa, bro. Whoa.
This was another curious detail. The voice sounded like it would come from a specific area, but somehow it's also reverberating.
Not Khadeed sounds like sounds like a horny Chinaman. No. There's not a bunch of Chinamen running around Victorian era England. There might have been a couple, but like, and then he wouldn't have been able to say normal. You know, I just don't buy the Chinaman theory. All right, it's probably just a normal British chap, and he was all like, "Oh, dog," and like knickers. Should have said knickers, right? Because they're English. But yeah, he's a pervert. There's a pervert living in your walls, and you're like, "What is this thing? It's talking at me."
House.
Fucking cat. What is this thing? What is this thing speaking the Queen's English at me through my walls? It must be some sort of mongoose. Just kill yourself, man. Just fucking kill yourself.
So everyone could hear it to some degree. It would sing small parts of hymns and songs. It would even throw objects, most often rocks, at the family. Obedient to ya just says, just shove a long blade into the drywall. Right, because you're living with this thing anyway. And you're probably not going to hit it. But just once a day at a random time, just shove a sword right through the wall. At any place in the wall. Right? Out of sheer luck, you might get him one day. But if you don't, it's going to really keep him on his toes. And I think, you know, inciting fear into people like that is a lot of fun. Family. James became concerned that the creature...
It's not about the damage you do. It's about the damage they suspect.
...to kitchen knives. Mm-hmm. But despite the Irving's curious belief that this was in fact...
Obedient to us, and you'll hear it scuffle like a motherfucker. Right? Yeah, just like most of the time you'll just hear nothing, and then one day you're just gonna right, just scratching against the walls and stuff, and then be like, your wife was mid, or it feels like your wife is cheating on you. That's his dying breath. Your wife's fucking the stable boy. Like, whoa. I'm glad this guy's dead. Oh, I'm sorry, this mongoose.
Some sort of animal still. The voice started to disagree, telling them in its own words that it was a ghost in the form of a weasel, and it intended to haunt them. This apparently particularly scared the young girl Vori. James and Margaret had made a point to try and not show fear to whatever this creature was, but it clearly spotted a weakness in the Irving's daughter, and it began more and more often to focus its attention on her.
It's talking, though, and it's not. How are you not afraid of, like, a voice coming out of the walls that's speaking the English? How does that not, like, especially in this day, this day, where they, not like today. Today, somebody may have dropped their phone in the wall somehow and, on speakerphone, and then you're just getting butt dialed. But back then, there's definitely somebody, unless somebody put a gramophone back there, which I would highly doubt. Because somebody would still have to be back there cranking that thing, right? And you hear old-timey, right in the middle of the night. I feel like, the fuck is that?
Early on, James had been to see his neighbour, Ian Corlett, and had asked the man to borrow a rat trap, claiming he had some sort of weasel in the walls of his house. A week later...
Did you tell him it was an English-speaking weasel? Because I'm sure he would have looked at you very strangely and been like, you're crazy. You're obviously crazy. There's not an English-speaking weasel. There's not. Those aren't a thing. Those aren't a thing. You either have a normal weasel or a guy with a weasel, right? It could be two things. You ever think about it? It could be two things, right? It's a guy and his pet weasel just pulling mad pranks on you. And they like have it all worked out and they steal your food at night.
Ian saw James again and asked him if he had managed to catch it. James told the man no. The blinking fingers started...
Background noise says, honestly, I would just think the homeless flattened themselves out and slipped through a seam in the wall. Is that a... What? Like a cat? Or like some sort of... Humans have bones. I can't do that. I can't... Can Asians? Maybe the Chinaman theory is actually coming together. I think Asians can do that.
Talking. Ian stood there. Not quite sure he understood.
Weasel's a paid actor. Okay.
2 months after the strange activity...
Obedient says it's Ping Ping and Wing Wing. Right? They're Chinese twins. And one's kind of weaselly sized. And the other one's really big. And they just escaped from a circus. And they just wanted to peep on this guy's wife. And they knew English.
Begun, Margaret was away and James and his daughter had both gone to bed, when they were awoken by a loud scream. Vori asked her father what was going on. James thought he had finally gotten the creature. He had left a piece of bread with rat poison on it near the top of the stairs, and it appeared Jack had found it. For 20 minutes the screaming continued, Vori covering her ears, disturbed by the pained screams of the poor creature. Then suddenly it stopped. Vori...
So now you have a dead homeless guy. I'm sorry. Ghosts don't eat bread. And they don't eat poison bread. Homeless people eat poison bread pretty often. At least when I'm around. So I think our theory of a homeless man, not necessarily Asian, is probably pretty strong here, right? Because if they're coming out and eating bread that's just left on the ground, that's homeless behavior. That's a homeless archetype right there. That's people under the stairs kind of shit,
He climbed a ladder and looked into the loft space, where the screams had apparently been coming from.
Onia says, I was homeless, John. You don't get bones until you get a roof. It's a survival adaptation. Okay, well, that makes sense, because a lot of the homeless I see just look like big blobs. How do you get so fat being homeless? Seriously, I see homeless people, and I'm like, you're 300 pounds. How are you... Where... You can't take some of your food budget and pay for rent? It's all food, huh? And beer. A lot of it's beer. But, like, why are you so fat? Like, don't you have to walk everywhere? I see you on a bicycle. I see you with 2 bicycles. He's, like, pushing one, right? How do you not lose any weight? How are you so fucking fat? You're just a big blob. And you just sit around eating Like, geez, dude. I hate the homeless.
But nothing was there. The voice went quiet for a few days. Before
David Thoreau says, ate themselves out of house and home. Did they live in a gingerbread house? Because that's the only way I see that it being possible.
Making a sudden return.
You know,
again, another night the family was awoken by its screams and gargles of pain. This time non-stop for a full half hour. But seemingly the creature wasn't sick, nor dying. It was just teasing James for his misguided attempt at leaving out the poison, telling the family later that he did it for the devilment.
You fools! I've grown immune to poison. They regularly try to poison the homeless, and I get it. Like, okay, so you ate the. This is thickening. The plot here is thickening. That's what I'm saying, right? I think he did eat the poison, and he probably like vomited black inside of his walls. And then wanted the people in the house to think that he was not, I mean, he survived, right? But he was all like, aha, that's a misguided attempt. Now never poison my food again. I don't know. I think I'm kind of starting to like this homeless guy. I don't like homeless people. But this guy is kind of entertaining. And the guy who lives here is fucking retarded. I've never seen a stupider person in the world. Your walls are talking to you, and you're teaching them English. Not the walls specifically, but a weasel ghost inside of the walls. And you're teaching it English, and why haven't you left? Why haven't you just walked out and then never returned? Right? Or brought the cops back, or the bobbies, I'm sorry. Why didn't you bring the cops back and be like, yeah, there's a homeless guy in my walls. Can you like flush him out? And then they just, I don't know, burn the house down. I'm just saying, how stupid do you have to be? Or is this guy just like lonely, right? He hates his fat wife, and like he's not in great shape either. I mean, the weasel told us so. What is going on here?
James attempted to block up the many holes in the home, believing that the creature was using them to move around the house quickly. But it did nothing to stop it. The voice started to become increasingly aggressive towards Vori, threatening her, throwing stones. James and Margaret decided to move her into their bedroom at night. While dismantling the girl's bed, Jack stomped around in the walls, screaming and shouting, smashing against them with a violent force. Once the bed was moved, the voice shouted, apparently trembling with rage, that it would follow her wherever they moved her. That night, terrified, James barricaded the door with chairs and a dresser. At some point, something began banging on the door with such a force that it caused the door to bulge. And then the voice was heard, screaming that it was coming in. The banging went silent for a moment, before a large pot in the room flew from one side, crashing into the floor.
All right. So your daughter. Okay. The walls are talking to you, and they're stomping around. They're pissed off that you're moving your daughter out of her own bedroom. Why? Your daughter has been alone at night, and the walls are talking to you, and like this guy's like like this, and now you're moving the bed, and he's audibly pissed, right? You can hear, and then he starts banging on the door and stuff like that. They didn't have guns in England even back then, because the instant that door bulges, I'm gonna put some buckshot through it, right? Just. I'm putting some buckshot through it just in case. Whatever, ghost weasel or not, it's not, I mean, it almost died from the poison bread. Okay, so let's see it, shirk off some buckshot. Right? Just some double out buckshot to this area, and then if he still survives that, then you could be like, okay, he's a English-speaking weasel ghost.
Irvings desperately searched, but again,
yeah,
no
blam.
sign of the creature.
That's all I would do, blam.
These first 6 months were apparently hell for the family. The voice was angry and antagonistic, mocking and attempting to scare the family away with every chance it got. Rumors of the creature had begun to spread.
Obedience says, I'm sorry, officer, we had an infestation of ghost weasels. Well, no, imagine like you're calling the Scotland Yard to retrieve this body because you just blew this guy's head off. And you're like explaining it to him. I'm sorry. I thought he was a ghost weasel. And that's why I blew his head off. And then they're like, everything seems to be in order here. Right? And they just drag his corpse out by the feet. And just leaving a trail of blood. Okay. Whatever. Better times. Better times.
People would come up to the farm to try and get a look at what was going on. It became such an issue that James had to put up barricades to stop trespassers, and later signs informing people that they could enter the farm by appointment only. But James and Margaret would often visit the much larger nearby town of Peel to visit family and for work. As they told their story to their friends and family, the word quickly got out. There wasn't much going on in the area in those days, so fantastical tales about a talking weasel obviously sparked the imagination. In January of 1932, even the media had started paying attention to the story.
Okay, so 1932. So, I'm sorry, 1932 is like, that's very modern. That's pretty modern for you to be like, there's a talking weasel. If this was like the 1700s or something like that, maybe I might believe it more. But also, it's 1932. They have like machine guns and stuff, and they have armaments, and you can own a gun in England in 1932. Not anymore. Now it's all knives, right? Now you just stab each other. Yeah, it's You could have told Hitler that you have ghost weasels, and I'm sure you would have stayed right out. There would be no issue.
Story. Over in England, a journalist was sent to the island from the Daily Dispatch to investigate. The journalist arrived at the farm and was met by James Irving. The reporter told James that he had come to find out if the rumours were true, that the house was haunted. James told the reporter it wasn't. There were no spooks in his home, but he is worried about the amount of people that were suddenly trying to visit the farm. Despite this, James invited the man in and told him the whole story. He told the man he had gotten the creature to say phrases in English, German, Yiddish, Spanish, Flemish, and Hebrew. Apparently the little creature was as interested in languages as James himself was. He also claimed that the voice could hold a conversation and could tell the family about events that were happening in the nearby village. James stated that the creature had never taken any food, despite having the opportunities to do so.
Okay, well, so I bet he just thought his wife was just eating huge amounts of food. Yeah, the creature he doesn't take any food, but like my wife seems to eat like twice as much as a normal person. It's very, for some reason, and his wife is not that, maybe she is fat, I don't know. James is an idiot.
He also gave the reporter the name of several locals who had visited the farm and heard the voice.
Not Khadid says Yiddish and Hebrew? Suspicious. Yeah. Yeah. Are we sure this guy's on the level? Is it, I mean, you know, I'm not saying anything. All right. But when you tried to teach the ghost to like deny the Holocaust, then everything got really uncomfortable.
James told the reporter that they had considered
the ghost is all like, why did it have wooden doors?
leaving, but that the stories about the plague
6 million is too many
were having a negative impact on the property, claiming it seemed it would be difficult to sell with the locals all making claims that the place was haunted. The journalist went to leave, but as he did, James called him back, saying the voice had started talking. They crept up to the open door, and there he heard it. This strange, high-pitched voice that he would later claim he didn't believe could come from a human throat. The voice was talking to Margaret in another room. She...
Audience says, turns out the Mongoose was a Jewish girl named Anne Frank. I would love to see this Mongoose's diary, right? Being forced to stay on these walls and peep on the wife and like, you know, mince over the daughter. Like, for some reason, it wrote it in ballpoint pen, which hadn't been invented yet. So it's a perplexing mystery.
Believing the reporter had left was telling it that the man had gone. The voice was seemingly suspicious of outsiders visiting the home. But the voice...
Because he says the 1930s Mongoose denied the Holocaust is hilarious. Yeah, it's like, wow, no, it's... And then it has like lots of long explanations about how...
Disagreed with her.
That's
saying
silly.
That the reporter hadn't
silly.
left. And that it could hear him whispering, which he was currently doing to James. Then it said, I won't talk for these people. They are all liars. Before falling silent. This reporter appears to be the origin point for one of the more widely reported...
Okay, so... What is this? What is that language? That's Hebrew. That's Hebrew. He's writing from right to left. That's Hebrew. I can clearly see it. Okay? So, and I'm not saying anything about anything, all right? I'm not saying anything about anything. But what is the... If we were to go into Wikipedia and we were to click on the early life section, what would we see?
Possible explanations
for the
voice's existence.
What would we see? Is it about James or is it about the Mongoose?
And that is that Vory was a skilled ventriloquist. However, while he felt this was possible, he didn't see any evidence that the girl had this talent and was somehow responsible for the voice. This is a claim that seems to divide quite a few people involved in the case.
Obedient to us says just go into the attic and drop like 20 bug bombs down into the walls. Or Zyklon B. It's very effective on Mongoosts.
We'll get
it's
into
very
that
effective on Mongoose.
The reporter left though, with a profound belief that at the very least, James Irving seemed to genuinely believe the voice was real, and that he was convinced it was some sort of miraculous animal, not a paranormal entity. Early in 1932, James and Vory potentially got another look at the creature when they looked out their window to see in the garden what appeared to be a very large cat, striped like a tiger, its head even larger, almost resembling a bulldog. It had no tail, much like the Manx cats that lived on the island, but it was far too large to be one.
I bet it was a cat. If it was much like the Manx cats who live on the island and are common on the island, and it doesn't have a tail like the cats that live on the island that are common on the island, maybe that was a cat, you know? Or you know what? It was probably a spiritual demonic creature that was peeping on your daughter and, complaining about the food. Are you sure? Are you sure? I don't... I'm very suspicious. I'm very suspicious about this. I want to see the guy from Inglourious Bastards and be like, you're hiding weasels under the floorboards, aren't you? Right?
When they went outside, they could find no trace of the animal. They noticed this strange sighting, but the description didn't seem to match whatever was inside their home. But when Margaret returned that night, James was telling her about what they had seen, when the voice interrupted him, saying, "It was me you saw, Jim." Jim being what the creature would call James. This became a common thing with sightings of the creature. People would often report him as looking different to what others had seen, leading some to suggest that he was somehow capable of changing his appearance.
Shape-shifting now. Okay, now the pieces are starting to fall into place. All right, I think you got Jews. I'm pretty sure you got Jews. I'm like 100% positive. I know you gotta call it. There's a special force that comes in, and then you got an infestation of shape-shifting cat Jews.
James had looked out his window to see two boys on his property.
What kind of story is this?
He went outside to talk to the boys, inquiring about their names. It soon became apparent that he actually knew one of them. He was the son of a man named Jeff Lowry, who had once worked on the farm. Again, the evening arrived and James was talking to Margaret in the kitchen. Conversations in the home were no longer ever private. Jack was always around to hear. Shortly after, the voice shouted out, "I don't like the name Jack. Call me Jeff." Apparently, the voice was only able to spell out words phonetically, and this is where the strange spelling of G-E-F for Jeff came from. Furthermore,
Khadid says Jeff the Jew, but I'm sorry, it would be spelled more like that. There you go. If you're in the chat, it's with a G. It's a soft G. It's a soft G.
Not long after this, Jeff decided that he was not a ghost, telling the Irvings that he was in fact just an extra special mongoose who could talk.
Mordecai says, Ghost really said, "My name's Jeff." My name is Jeff.
Talk. One issue with this being that the descriptions of those who claimed to see Jeff rarely matched up with the description of a mongoose. But this information was enough for James, who for some strange reason still believed he was dealing with an animal that had apparently...
Okay, alright, whatever.
...learnt to talk. Jeff claimed that he was born in India.
Okay. Yeah, why not? Why not? India. This is okay. How'd you get here, Jeff? How'd you get here from India? This story is not making sense. Not making sense. Something's up. Something's up, you guys.
80 years prior, and had ended up coming to England after briefly being in Egypt. It seemed, though, that Jeff wasn't a recent arrival, not having all the information to connect the earlier tales of strange activity around the farm at this point. They hadn't even considered it.
Fucking Jeff the Jeep. You're just sitting there eating dinner and then you hear Bob's coming out of the wall and you're like, what the fuck was that? Why is it stinking here?
But Jeff would make references to friends of the family who he hadn't seen in years, as well as the Irving's two older children who had moved away some time ago at this point. Jeff apparently revealing that he did not like the older Irving girl in particular. Vori's bed stayed in her parents' bedroom for...
He doesn't like the older one. He likes the 13-year-old. So, Indian confirmed. Hard confirmed.
Several months after the initial move. But this seemed to be around the time that Jeff stopped harassing the family. Or at least, he did it less often. Jeff claimed that initially he thought the family...
There it is. There it is. That's the cat.
...he didn't like him. That they would try to...
Okay, alright. Here's the bell. Bing, 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 bing. I like that bell. I really like that bell. Background noise for $10 says, street shitter ghost? Disgusting. Imagine what the inside of your walls look like. I bet, like, the insulation is really, really good. But it's like shit. It's poop. And, like, loose, liquidy. It's not like solid turds or anything like that. Gross. Gross. You just have an Indian man shitting in your walls. And he's like talking to you and like peeping on your daughter and stuff like that. And he gets really angry when you take away the opportunity for him to peep on your daughter. And like, yeah. Yep. This is, you got Indians too in there. They run together. for some reason.
To make him leave. An understandable reaction considering James had attempted to poison him, but he now seemingly wanted to live in some sort of harmony with the family. He continued to be increasingly attached to Vori in particular, following her everywhere she went, even when she would leave the farm. Vori attended the nearby school in Derby Village. James had gone to meet her one day and ended up chatting to her teacher, Miss Greer, about Jeff. As I said, rumours of the strange creature had begun to circulate in the community, and James was all too happy to talk to anyone about it, apparently much to the dismay of his wife and daughter, who, while fascinated by Jeff themselves, were more keen to keep the whole thing quiet until they understood exactly what they were dealing with. Despite having been alone...
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's not a weasel ghost that speaks English and, like, is really, really horny. It's not that. It's not that. I don't think it's anything at all. I think James is making some shit up, but, you know, whatever.
With no one else in earshot when talking to his daughter's teacher. On the walk back home, James and Vori heard Jeff's voice. He demanded to know why James had been talking about him and what he had told the teacher.
That was a sloppy edit.
This became something of a common occurrence in the months and years that followed. Jeff was happy to eavesdrop on others' conversations, both at the farm and in the wider community. But he did not like it if others took an interest in him without his consent. He seemed to want to remain the family's secret.
Who gives a shit what you want? You're not doing it. You're not. I'm sorry. You're like peeping on the daughter and like stealing food and like calling people fat and like watching people bang and like watching the mom get undressed and stuff and like making rude comments to her. And you're like, oh, I want you to respect my privacy, please. Go fuck off, Jeff. How about that? How about you fuck right off? Right? Fuck you, Jeff. You don't even pay rent. You just shit in my walls and steal my food.
Although Jeff's moods and opinions on most subjects seemed to change on a whim.
Obedient to us says there was a Jeff on the Epstein. So we're talking old Jeffy boy, huh? We're talking Jeff. Okay, it could be. I mean, she was 13, which is a little old, but, you know, you gotta get what you gotta get. You know, you get what you can. I mean, he's a... Yeah. By the way, he's still alive.
Regularly.
Or dead.
If Jeff was sneaky and
whatever
hard to spot, or actually invisible, seemed to be a difficult
Jeff
question.
started the entire pedo ring in the 1930s. That's like when Hollywood started to really pop off, isn't it? I think that's... I'm not saying they're connected. I'm not saying they're connected at all. I'm just saying they're 100% completely connected.
Question to answer. There was a relatively early report, though, of a worker on the farm claiming he saw a sandwich floating through the air low to the ground and disappearing into the bushes, as though it were being carried by an invisible squirrel.
Floating sandwiches. What kind of sandwich was it?
Early on, Jeff apparently claimed to have no stomach, that he relied purely on air to survive. But when in early 1932 the family...
Well, what do you can... Okay, so now you know how to kill him. Remove the air from the house. Remove the oxygen from the house, and you will be Jeffless, right? No more Jeff. No more Yiddish or Hindi or nothing like that coming from the walls, which is an improvement. Regardless, dude. I mean, just if I don't want my... Yeah, just like have the place fumigated. You can do that in the 1930s. They have the technology to fumigate houses in the 30s, right? Zyklon B.
Family started leaving food out for him. He eagerly gobbled it up. Lean bacon, bananas and chocolate were all apparently favourites of Jeff. Margaret claimed that she was even able to feed Jeff by hand once, when she saw a small fluffy shape running along the beams of the home one night. She held up some food and he took it, She didn't get a good look at him from the position she was in before he scurried away, but she felt his teeth on her finger. He would still regularly create loud bangs that would shake the entire house. The Irvins explained a strange detail about the creature that suggested how he may be able to do this. While he looked very much like a weasel or similar animal, they claimed he had hands, each with 3 fingers, that disturbingly resembled human hands, but much smaller.
He's a human. Okay, he's okay, maybe he is from India, but I don't, you'd be able to tell with the accent. They never lose the accent. If they're from India, they never lose the accent, as hard as they try. You just have a person that lives in your house. Or not. I think you're all lying. I think you're a bunch of fucking liars. I think you're all liars.
It's allowed him to grip objects.
I think you're liars just to seem interesting and maybe make a buck off of it. I think you're lying.
Throw them, and even bang his fists when annoyed. He had shown these before by poking them through a hole in the wall of Ori's bedroom. Jeff would laugh. At times...
Did I not just say that? Did I not just say they're looking through the peephole? Right? Like that? And they're all like, yeah. All right. Yeah. Where's that bitch with the sandwich? Yeah. Dude. First of all, how much wall space is there in your house? Is there enough for like living quarters and like enough to walk around and like be a full-grown man in there? Because I bet there is. I bet there is. Right? It's like a medieval house. So you don't even know all the spaces in there, right? They're not properly mapped out. I bet there's a false wall or something going on where people are like some sort of tunnel system is going in and out of your house. And it's probably not just Jeff. It's probably like a bunch of dudes, right? And then they're all just digging away at the house, speaking Yiddish.
Sometimes a creepy and disturbing laugh. Others more playful and fun. He loved to sing, and not just in English, but also Spanish, the local dialect Manx, and apparently in Hindi, although some have pointed out that many of the phrases that Jeff uses in Hindi are incorrect or don't really translate well, which seems odd considering his claims of being from India, although it's worth noting this is just one of many Indian languages.
Yeah, but they all kind of sound dumb. There's like Tamil, and then there's like, those are the two that I know of.
When he would leave the house and return, strangely the only animals that seemed to react to his presence were the geese, who would make sounds when Jeff was returning to the farm. The family's sheepdog apparently had no interest in the mongoose. Jeff even had his own space.
Okay, so it was probably a white guy living in your house.
In the Irving's home.
I'm just saying, if it was a black guy, the dog would be going nuts. If the dog would be absolutely losing his shit, and then you couldn't live like that. It's just a ghetto-ass black dude in his walls. I can't breathe!
That was referred to as his sanctum.
Jeez.
To the right of the stairs on the upper floor was a ledge.
Oh.
The stairs were boxed in by a wooden partition where the ledge was. Technically, this led into Vori's room, but seemingly was also accessible through the parents' room, allowing Jeff to move between the two. They would often leave his food there. They also believed this is where Jeff liked to sleep, although they would never catch him in the act. There was also a wooden chair here that they would often hear Jeff pushing around, claiming that he used it for exercise.
Why does this ghost weasel need exercise? Why does a ghost need exercise? Why does it need food? This is nonsense. This is all nonsense. There's just things that are, he's from India. He spent some time in Egypt going on. This is nonsense.
Enjoyed playing with toys, and visitors to the home would bring him gifts like bouncy balls and chocolate to try and win favour with the strange creature. 2 local boys,
I would love some chocolate.
Will Cubban and Harry Hall, came to visit, eager to meet Jeff. The boys in fact did see a creature running around their garden that matched Jeff's description, but not at the farm. James took them into Vori's room and showed them a fastening on the outside, telling them that on occasion Jeff would lock the girl in her room, and that it couldn't be done from the inside of the room. As a demonstration, Vori went inside and the boys went into the kitchen, asking Jeff to do it. Sure enough, he did. They also heard Jeff singing and claimed that the creature had quite a foul mouth at times.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, what do you expect him to be polite? Indians or Jews or... I can't keep track of what this thing is. It's a cat weasel that doesn't eat food, and then it does eat food, but he's super horny for the 13-year-old, and like follows her to school and stuff. Shits in the walls, likes chocolate, but that's anything. Any human likes chocolate. It seems like a human, because every time I feed my cat chocolate, it dies.
He even apparently spat at the boys at one point. It's not a cat. But he didn't appear hostile.
This is a cat.
Telling them that he just wanted to make them laugh. They then played the penny game.
It's not. My cat doesn't whisper at me. It doesn't come into my bedroom. You're fat. I'm like, dude.
I wish you did whisper though.
Why would you whisper I'm fat? I'm chiseled though.
No. Not that you're fat. Just in general, I wish you whispered.
I wish you would. It would just be insults. It'd be like, hey, feed me. Hey, can you feed me? Hey. I'm like, dumb cat. She would do that too.
Many visitors to do. They would flip a coin on the porch, and the voice of Jeff would tell them which way.
They would flip a coin on the porch, and they would instantly disappear. Where'd my coin go?
The coin had landed. The voice got it right every time. Even when they tried to trick it by not actually flipping the coin, it called them out on their deceit. None of the Irvings were close enough to be able to see the coin from where the boys were.
Onia says it's a Jewish Indian midget mongoose from Japan. What's hard to understand? You're right. I'm just not paying attention.
But this strange trick left an uneasy question in the air.
All of that?
Was Jeff's eyesight so good that he could see the coin from one of the holes in the wooden paneling? Or was he able to read minds?
Yeah, that's it.
Jeff's ability to know what was going on in other places was well recorded at this point. Margaret would be inside the house and Jeff's voice would inform her exactly what animals her husband was working on at that moment, what he was doing, when he was coming back.
Fucking a pig.
He brought the family gossip from the local...
She's like knitting, right? And she just hears, fucking a pig. And then she's like, damn it. Damn it. Not again.
Area, telling them things that he should have no way of knowing. Describing the insides of homes the family had never visited, but they would later find would match.
Yeah, because I think this guy just goes into a lot of people's houses uninvited. And he just steals food and peeps on people. I think that's not... And he came into your house and then you started talking to him and he started talking back. And you seem okay with it. Most people just throw him out. Like Jazzy Jeff, right out the front. But not these people.
Although it seemed this wasn't always through some ability to see things that were happening in other places, but instead literally visiting others.
Not Khadid says, remember when that British PM admitted he fucked a pig's head? Yeah, I think that was some sort of humiliation ritual that a lot of politicians and big Hollywood stars have to go through. And he admitted it, but I bet a lot of them do something similar to that. I would probably guarantee it, right? I would probably guarantee it. Those upper elites are fucking weird, dude. Once you get to a certain level, they do weird rituals and I don't know, Satan worship kind of shit. Yeah.
and eavesdropping on conversations. At times, Jeff would fall ill, with the Irvings finding
Wait. So this guy, he fucked the pig's head. Did he nut? Did he finish? Did he finish in the pig's head? I want to know. Or did he just, like, give it a couple of strokes and then everyone patted him on the back? I guess I don't need to know. I don't. I think I'm just burning with curiosity if he was, like, able to climax inside of that pig's head. This world pisses me off. This world just pisses me off sometimes.
There was a vomit under their bed. He would catch colds, filling the walls.
Hog Dog says if you don't finish, you don't fuck. Okay, well, no. Because women, I mean, women never finish, right? They never, not if I'm involved.
With a rattling cough. One time...
Every time I'm like, haha, beat you. Right? I'm very selfish.
When yelling out, Jim, I have a goddamn cough. I have a hell of a cough. You will need to give me something. Using the word hell and devil often was something Jeff was fond of saying, as well as screeching vanished when he would go away.
We're talking
one
men.
Of his favorite phrases.
Hog Dog says we're talking men and women don't matter. Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, that's a scientific fact. That women don't matter. But yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. I'll give it to you. It's just like, yeah. Like, if you don't nut, then did you really fuck? I feel like if this was brought into court, a judge would be like, no. No. Just because you didn't finish doesn't mean it wasn't statutory rape. You know what I mean? You know? Right?
To say was nuts, as well as a slew of different insults that he loved to throw around. Vori was quite the skilled rabbit hunter apparently, and would often take her dog Mona out, using her as a pointer to distract a rabbit, so she could come up behind it and club it with a stick. Jeff apparently took it upon himself to help. He began bringing the Irvings dead rabbits.
Nice.
It would be easy to say that these were actually being killed by Vori, but Jeff's method of killing was different. The animals would be found with their eyes bulging, but not a scratch on them, suggesting that Jeff was strangling the creatures. Jeff would bring so many into the home that the family actually managed to turn it into a secondary source of income.
Okay, so it strangled rabbits, and it would strangle the rabbits. It would strangle the rabbits, and that's how it would kill just dozens of rabbits. That might be the daughter. I think she'd be pretty crazy. And she's like a weirdo. Right? She's a weirdo. And she strangles rabbits because that's how she gets her,
income, selling the rabbits that Jeff would kill. However, Jeff soon realised the value he was bringing in, and if he was in a bad mood or didn't get his way, he would threaten to go on strike. Jeff continued to be fiercely protective of Vori in these early days. Her family's...
Khadid says technically grape is penetration, not sex. Grape is also about power, not sex. I don't like that. Oh, it's about power and not sex. What? How do you know what it's about? Right? Maybe some dude just really wanted to fuck. It's not that he wanted to feel powerful. He just needed to nut. And are you sure? It's about power. It's not about... How the fuck do you know? And why does it even matter? Right? Maybe, I don't like that. I don't like the it's a power thing. I don't think it is. I think it's just I think it's just, I think it's about sex. I think it's about, yeah, because, you know, if it was about power, you could just force somebody to arm wrestle you and then just slam their hand into the table and be like, yeah! And then just walk off. It becomes about sex when you pull your pants down. You know?
His reputation was not doing her popularity any good. The phrase spook began to refer not just to the phenomena taking place in their home, but was also used as a nickname for the at times strange and shy girl. When she was headed to the bus stop one day, a group of other children saw her coming and began to mock her. Vori wasn't close enough to hear them.
Ha ha, rabbit strangler, rabbit strangler.
But apparently, Jeff was. They began to be pelted by rocks by an invisible force.
Just a guy behind the bushes throwing rocks.
Rumours continued that Vori was somehow responsible for faking Jeff, a fact that Jeff himself was not happy with. He once overheard a neighbouring farmer talking about how the girl was responsible for the spook. Jeff informed the Irvings later of what he had heard, and started yelling that he would kill the farmer's turkeys. Apparently shortly after this, sure enough, all of the farmer's ducks and turkeys vanished.
Were strangled to death.
No trace of them was ever found.
Okay.
This was a good example of the two sides of Jeff's personality. He could be a fun and playful entity, telling jokes, playing games, singing songs, and even at times could be heard dancing in his sanctum. But at other times it appeared the mask slipped, and a much angrier presence made itself known, much as it had done in those first 6 months. He would say things to the family like, "I could kill you all if I liked."
I say that to my family all the time.
But I won't.
but I won't. But I won't. I'm just like, I'm eating dinner and I'm like, you know, I could kill you all if I wanted. All right. Then everyone just stops talking.
He liked to threaten livestock, saying that if the Irvings were kind to him, he would bring them good luck. If not, he would kill all their poultry. He also would ask if the family had any enemies on the other farms. If they did, he said he would kill their lambs for them. One moment, Jeff would berate the family with insults. The next, he would declare that he was shy and timid. It was almost like Jeff was made up of more than one personality.
Are we sure it's not the girl? Because it seems like the girl seems like she could have, and like she's been pretty quiet during this entire thing. If Jeff is there like talking to her at night and she's not freaked out by that, I would feel like it's the girl that's going around strangling the farmer's chickens and like strangling rabbits and like, you know, but who knows? Because she could have multiple personalities, and then one of them is Jeff from India. Jeff from India, and he's mad horny. Crazy.
The local bus drivers at the nearby station were a particular target of Jeff's nosy ways. Jeff would often reveal discussions they had, and even apparently told one driver.
He says, I'm confused about Jeff's ethnicity. What is it again? And Oneida says Jewish, Indian, midget, not an ethnicity, Mongoose from Japan. But not Japanese. But from Japan. Indian from Japan, who is a midge, Mongoose. That's Jewish. Oh, and he spent some time in Egypt.
Driver had the exact jumper his wife was knitting back at their home. They became so enraged by Jeff that they began setting
Mongoose.
traps, but with no luck.
I hate this Mongoose.
Other visitors to the home claimed that Jeff knew things about them that he should have no way of knowing. What they were reading, the rooms they were staying in, personal details that the Irving family should have no knowledge of.
Yeah,
In
like my
February of
videos,
1932,
please.
Harry Price had received a letter from
Please, if you're not going to donate, which I'm not saying you should donate or anything like that, although I have gotten some donos, so thank you for that. Just like the video.
Irving's neighbour, who told him all about Jeff. Price's health wasn't the best at this point, and he was busy with another case, so he sent a man named Captain Harold Dennis to the island. Dennis was a former ambulance driver for the Red Cross during the war. He also had a keen interest in zoology, and actually owned a number of exotic animals. Side note here, he actually offered to bring a mongoose to the island to meet Jeff. Jeff apparently did not like this idea.
Okay, why not? Bring a female mongoose. Then you have weird talking to mongoose. What's a baby mongoose called? Is it like, you know how a goat is a kid? Or like a chicken is a chick, and like, you know, a dog is a puppy. What's a baby mongoose?
And said he would kill it. Price described Captain Dennis as a well-known racing motorist and businessman who was very shrewd and not easily hoodwinked.
Bullshit. There's the bell, and Hog Dog for $5 says @HogDog. Thank you, Hog Dog. See, I just said it 3 times. I should have summoned you.
Dennis would make 3 trips to the island to meet the Irvings and Jeff.
He better not be Mong. Dude, there's so many Mong. I had a Mong friend. Jess remembers Ted. He was such a sweet boy. He was such a sweet, sweet boy. And I hope he's doing good. I hope you're good out there, Ted, if you're watching, which I doubt. Yeah, there's tons of Hmong in California, dude. Just tons of them. I think they're like Vietnamese or something. I don't know. I didn't ask.
With mixed results. He arrived early one evening. And
when the Hmong came to California, they didn't like understand. They were given a bunch of houses and stuff because but they were given a bunch of houses and they didn't understand like what grocery stores were. And so they would just walk through grocery stores and like open up peanut butter and then like eat it and then just drop it and then just walk away. It was like an issue. It was an issue. But that was a while back. That was like in the 70s, I think.
Was welcomed in by the family. They set about telling him the whole story and began showing him the cracks in the walls that they believed Jeff travelled through. After several hours, Jeff had failed to show up.
Mordecai says pups is the answer. Hmong pups. Oh, you're not talking about Hmong people. Of course not. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry.
And Dennis had decided to leave for the night.
You're talking about a baby mongoose, and you're calling them a Hmong. I'm thinking of the Vietnamese people, the Hmong, who, yeah. Never mind. Excuse me.
As soon as he stepped out of the door, as was often the case with visitors, Jeff made himself known. Dennis heard a shrill voice saying, "Go away. Who is that man?" James Irving announced that it was Jeff talking.
It's Jeff.
The voice continued, but Dennis said he struggled to understand it. This was actually a common complaint of many who heard Jeff. They would catch odd words or sentences, but at times it just seemed to devolve into a high-pitched squeaking. But James, who was much more used to hearing Jeff's voice, was able to translate his words a lot easier. As soon as Dennis re-entered the home, the voice stopped again.
Mordecai said Hmong. Yeah, I was like, there should be an H in there somewhere. But yeah, you're right. Hmong, I think it's something like that, yeah.
Dennis returned the following morning. He was met by James, who said that Jeff had been very talkative that morning. He had apparently agreed to talk with the man, as long as he could provide a gift to Ori. Apparently he requested either a camera or a gramophone. Jeff had also said that he had been watching Dennis the night before and didn't like him. Jeff's reason for this was that Dennis did not believe in him. Jeff was always reluctant to provide any evidence of his existence, but if he felt that someone didn't...
Obedient says this feels like a What We Do in the Shadows bit. It does, doesn't it? Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, good catch.
...believe in him, he became irritated. Another of the many contradictions of Jeff the Talking Mongoose. Dennis had been unconvinced by the voice initially, but he was a little more perplexed when later that afternoon he had been sat with the Irvings at the kitchen table, having a cup of tea, when a needle appeared to fly out from behind him.
A needle?
The only thing that had been behind Dennis was a wall, but there was a small hole in it that it appears the needle could have come from. It seemed Jeff had decided to throw something out at him. In the hours that followed, he heard scurrying and strange sounds that he could find no trace for. Then, by another hole, he found a puddle of liquid that James claimed was likely Jeff's pee. Later that evening, Rory and her mother went upstairs to see if they could get Jeff to talk. Sure enough,
it's Jeff's pee. That's just Jeff pee. Just some Jeff pee. These people can't keep their story straight.
Voice was heard downstairs by Dennis. The voice yet again informed him that it did not like him, and if he tried to creep towards the stairs, no matter how quiet he was, Jeff would screech that the man was coming. Again, with two of the family out of eyesight, Dennis didn't find this too convincing. Dennis reported back to Price that he felt that James Irving was a trustworthy witness, but he was more suspicious of the two women in the house.
Yeah, women are notorious liars. If you guys don't understand, or like if you've never been around women, which, yeah, they're liars. They're all liars, and they lie consistently, even for reasons they don't need to. If they don't need to lie, they'll lie anyway, just because boredom. I don't really understand women all that well. I know they don't understand each other. That's a hard fact. They all act like they like each other, but they actually don't like each other. It's a very strange world. Thank God I'm not a woman.
You've pointed out similarities.
Women be lying, case, right? Women be lying.
Traditional poltergeist case, particularly due to the presence of a teenage girl at the center of it all. But unlike most poltergeist
and they be shopping,
that seem to be short-lived,
lying and shopping,
intense
lying and shopping, and eating hot chip and twerking.
Affairs. Jeff stuck around for years. In fact, it wouldn't be until 1935 that Captain Dennis would return. James had come down to meet Dennis at the Waterfall Inn in the nearby village, where they had lunch and walked along the beach. During their conversation, Dennis made a curious comment, saying he felt like Jeff was with them. James explained that this wasn't unlikely. Jeff had been known to follow James 4 miles some days, when he would visit the town of Peel. Captain Dennis picked a flower that he put in the buttonhole of his jacket, and they began the walk towards
the old buttonhole. The old buttonhole.
As soon as they entered,
the buttonhole. So that's the butthole, right? I'm sorry. I know he's actually talking about a buttonhole specifically, but when I hear buttonhole, I think of asshole. Is that a me problem? Probably, absolutely. I'm deranged.
Margaret told them that Jeff had been with them. He knew that they had beer with lunch.
Nice. He had beer with lunch. He had 4 or 5 beers with lunch, right? It's a light lunch.
Revealed details about their conversation on the beach, and even apparently saw Dennis pick the flower. This was infinitely more interesting to Dennis than anything he had experienced on his first visit. There was no way James could have gotten this information back to his wife before their arrival. He considered the idea that maybe someone had been watching them, but he couldn't think of any space on the beach someone could have hid and still been close enough to hear.
Just a gaping buttonhole. Hog Dog says gaping is the only way. I mean, maybe are your buttonholes too tight? Because if you can't get the button through them, they're useless, right? Like, what are you gonna do? You need to really jam it in there for it to get, for them,
The more out there theory that didn't involve Jeff was the idea that Margaret could have some kind of psychic ability.
Yeah,
a theory that was suggested by a few over the...
Yeah, why not? Yeah, the mom's a psychic. Because what the hell? I mean, what's going on in this house? There's too many ingredients, dude. This is not a good story arc, right? They're just throwing shit out there. They're just throwing... You know when you make a stew and then you put like jelly beans and pickles and stuff in it, and you're like, wow, that's way too much different stuff, and it's just like, it's not going to make any sense. It's going to taste awful. But then they just keep throwing like coriander, and then there's like thyme, and there's like some bananas and stuff like that. And you're like, is this a stew? Are you really doing a stew, or are you having a seizure? That's what's going on here.
Years. Jeff was quiet at first, but when Vori left the house to go out into the farmyard, he spoke. Dennis, still suspicious the girl could be responsible, rushed to the window. But he could see her outside, far away. That night, as he walked down the path, he heard...
He says Jeff is definitely going to go on JRE soon. I'd watch it.
Jeff again. No one other than James was close to him, and Irving was in full view. Dennis wasn't sure what was going on here, but he was definitely more intrigued than he had been on his visit 3 years before.
Mm-hmm.
This was enough to coax Harry Price to head to the farm himself. Just a couple of months after...
Look at this guy. Just choking the life out of that cigarette, dude. That cigarette is done. Put it out and light another, bro. There's nothing left on that. You're smoking the filter. Just stop. Just stop. Put it down. Light another one. It's okay. Cigarettes are cheap. Especially back then. It's not all tax. Today, cigarettes are all taxes. Back then, a cigarette costs like... A pack of cigarettes was like a penny. Right? Because do you know how cheap it is to grow tobacco and then roll it up? It costs nothing. It's 100%... I mean, Mort, how much do you pay for a pack of cigarettes down there in Australia? $50? I don't know, but it's got to be expensive.
After Dennis's visit, he arranged a trip with his associate, Richard.
Oh, yeah, no filter, for sure,
a man of higher social stature than Price, and a fellow member of what would become known as the British Film Institute. His insistence on bringing Lambert, as well as his involvement of others in this case, seemed to suggest that Price was taking this somewhat seriously, although he was headed to Dawlish Kashen, firmly with a skeptical view of the whole thing. Something that was likely increased.
David says 75 cents for a pack of Reds in the 80s. And God, that makes me mad, dude. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. But, like, damn, dude. I mean, like, that's ridiculous. What are they now? Like $8 or $9 in the U.S.? $9 a pack? Something like that? That's stupid. That's stupid.
By the first...
Mort says, hold on. What? Are you serious? Mort says, but yeah, 20 pack of cigarettes is about $50. So $32 US, because they have funny money over there. That's retarded, dude. How do you catch... I mean, like, that's stupid. That's stupid. That's... Oh, God. What are you going to do about that, Mort? You got to do something. You got to... I'm going to start smuggling. I'm going to start smuggling cigarettes to Australia. That's what I'm going to do. That's sold. I'm going to do it. Even though they're expensive as shit here. $32. If I make $32... Holy crap, dude. That would make... How does that not make everybody so mad? How does that not make everybody so mad? That's so unfair. That's so unfair.
Something received. Price had requested the family send him a...
Mort says my rolling tobacco, 50 grams, is $180 for rolling tobacco. $180. Grow it, Mort. It grows out of the ground. Grow it. Tobacco grows out of the ground. Grow that shit. Who cares if the Australian... Well, you don't have guns either. You're fucked, bro. I'm sorry. Leave Australia. Go somewhere that's not Australia. Right? You can go over to... what's it like? Thailand. That's like a 2-hour flight for you. Go to Thailand and you can get cigarettes anywhere for dirt ass cheap, right? Can't you just bring them back? Can't you just bring them back? Probably not. because they're going to tax the shit out of you. God, Australia sounds like it sucks, dude. I'm sorry. But that's kind of, I'm not saying it's your fault, Mort, but it's like, oh, damn, bro. I feel bad. I really do feel bad for you.
A sample of Jeff's fur. Apparently the family had left Jeff a pair of scissors in his sanctum and asked him to trim some. Jeff told them to go and look, and sure enough, there, sat on the side, was a clump of fur. But when they sent this to Price...
Mort says you go to jail for growing tobacco here, less time for growing weed or opium poppies? Well, grow opium. I mean, just grow. I mean, because, yeah, opium. But, so? But just grow it anyway. Just grow it anyway. Grow tobacco anyway. Yeah, they're going to put you in... They put you in jail for Facebook posts, all right? So I think it's not really all that serious if you're growing tobacco. You know, if they're throwing you in jail because you said, why were there wooden doors on it? But, you know, grow tobacco because they're obviously just off their fucking rockers, okay? So just do whatever you want because you're probably going to end up in jail anyway. You know, when you throw people in jail for absolutely nothing, then people are going to do actually illegal things and not give a shit, okay? So grow the tobacco. I'm giving you permission to violate the laws of Australia, all right? I shouldn't even need to give you that permission. I'm insisting that you do so.
Price was frustrated.
Fuck that noise.
They appear to be dog fur.
Oh, by the way, guys, okay, we are at the time of the night when I am actually going to go, I'm sorry to end it like this, but I'm going to go on premium because, and I'm going to do the rest of it. I'm going to do another hour and 15 minutes. If you are on premium, then you can join me for the rest of the show. If you are not, then I'm sorry, you're going to be paywalled out, but I need to do this to stay part of the creator program, and it's just kind of what I need to do. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope you guys enjoyed the show and learned something and all of that. And I wish all of you could stay. I really do. But unless you pay for a Rumble Premium, you will be kicked out. But I hope you guys have a great night. For the people that aren't staying with me on this next leg of the journey, I hope you have a great night. Get out there, stay strong, be cool. And if you do sign up for Rumble Premium, do it like after my show. They track that pretty well. And like then I get like credits for that, and I would appreciate that. So I hope you guys have a great night, and I'll see you on Monday. And drink water and get to bed on time and take care of yourselves because I care about you too. The whole thing. I'll see you guys. And I'm going to hit the button in 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.